I think I'm completely on board with only buying comics at auction. Hey there, today I have an unboxing video, and in this video I'm going to open up an order that I placed with Infinity Comics, and Infinity Comics runs auctions on HipComic, which I just recently discovered and did an unboxing video of books that I won at auction from Quality Comics, also run through HipComic. And with Infinity Comics, I'm not sure if it's sort of like the house brand or the house wine or the house beer, whatever you want to call it, of HipComic. It feels like they're affiliated in some way. It's like HipComic is the platform or the technology that everything runs on, and Infinity Comics is kind of one of the brands that runs under the HipComic umbrella or something like that. But in any case, they run regular auctions like many of the sellers do there. And I want to open up a relatively small unboxing of books. And this was a little bit different from Quality Comics. With Quality Comics, they didn't list conditions at all. It was just, here's the book, here's the scan or photograph, and you make of it what you will. It's almost like they just had a conveyor belt where they just dropped a book down and took pictures and moved on to the next one. And so if you have the time, you're able to go through that and pick out some gems and so forth from Quality Comics, which I think I did probably a few too many times, but it makes for good future unboxings at least. But in the case of Infinity Comics, they actually listed a grade. And while that was good, all of the grades were kind of mid-grade. Somewhere between like a VG and a VF. Most of it was, VF minus, fine plus sort of range. But they had a lot of good books, a lot of Bronze Age, some Silver Age as well. Just kind of all across the board. But they were actually the first auction on HipComic that I participated in where it felt a little too good to be true. Now, I understand that, you're not going to find early bronze, late silver for, a couple of bucks and them arrive near mint. I understand that. My expectations were pretty low, but it was really the first auction that I participated on HipComic where I treated it almost just like a trial run. And there was a couple of things I learned through this that I want to share with you. The first thing is that Infinity Comics charges tax. So that was when I kind of went through the numbers here, which I'll share at the end of this video in terms of what I paid for this, and what I ended up winning each book at. When I kind of did the math afterward, I realized, okay, this was not as much of a deal as I thought, just because there was tax on top of shipping. And I believe they used UPS. The label says UPS and USPS tracking, but the shipping was rather expensive as well. So between the shipping and the tax, a couple of books that I thought that I got for a few dollars ended up really costing me closer to $5 or $6 because the order wasn't that big anyway. So they didn't gouge me on shipping or anything, but it's one of those where I love the free shipping. I love the no tax options just to keep the cost specific to the book and not have to add in all of these additional fees. So that was one thing, is that if I were to participate in an auction with Infinity Comics again on HipComic, I would think about that. Essentially, it's an extra 10% that you'd have to add on to your final total if you're thinking about picking up any books from Infinity Comics. And the other thing that I want to learn here with you is just how accurate is the grading. So I'll go through the books and maybe take one or two of them out and grade them here and just kind of see how accurate were their listings. Most sellers do not know how to grade comics, or they do know how to grade, and they're overgrading on purpose. So I want to get this order unboxed. We'll take a look at the comics, and then if you'll stay to the very end, I'll show you the final bid for each of these books, and then compare that to fair market value. And then we'll kind of see. I have a feeling this was another one of those too good to be true scenarios. So let's get to the unboxing and take a look at the comics that I picked up. Okay, here's the order that I received from Infinity Comics through HipComics. So let's go ahead and open this up and take a look. Okay, so here are the books. It was kind of a odd way to pack the books. The outer box had all of this tape around it, and all I had to do was cut the one side and open it with the flap, and then the books just slid right out. And then there were 2 pieces of cardboard on top, but the books were not affixed to the cardboard at all, so the books would slide around inside the 2 pieces of cardboard. What I'm checking right now is just to see on the back if any of the boards were damaged, and it doesn't look like it, so I think we're okay. And they all look to be like brand, recently bagged and boarded, so I don't know if this was like from a collection, they just decided to put them all in fresh bags and boards. But let's check them out. This was I ended up just winning. Again, I was just kind of picking a kind of a specific or the same selection of books. So just kind of targeted a handful of the lots just so that I could have something to experiment with. So what I ended up winning is an all Captain America set of books here. This was not a Captain America lot. You can see it looks like what they did is they'll put it in a bag and board and then put a sticker on it for their own like tracking purposes in terms of the lot number. Now, of course, even though it was recently bagged and boarded, I have to replace at least the bags, probably the boards as well. It looks to be kind of the modern age bag where it sits right up against the comic. So I have to replace all these anyway, but at least in transit, they were well packaged. These are all non-keys, so just 70s and 80s Captain America. Not too many here, so we'll go through them. And then, like I said, maybe I'll pick out 1 or 2 and grade them. So this is Captain America 248. It's a pretty cool John Byrne cover here. Captain America 236. This one, unfortunately, has some writing on it. Now, they listed the condition, but they also listed the book with a photo, with a scan. So, I didn't look close enough to see the marker on that one. So disappointed there, but just disappointed in myself for not catching that. Here is Captain America 231. Just kind of giving it a once-over. And let's take this one out and just give it a quick grade. They're actually put in the bag and board upside down, but it's not going to matter. I'm going to replace all these anyway. But I am just curious to see. These were all, again, in the fine to very fine range. And I'm just curious to see what we're dealing with. What I tried to do is get some books that maybe just the spine was relatively free, but maybe there was some other damage. The top of this book definitely has some waviness going on that would probably need to come out in a press, maybe a little humidity as well, a little bit of corner crunching with color breaking there as well. Color break there and there and there. Has some what of a stacking crease. See a little bit of spine tick right there by the staple. And then the back, as far as the condition goes, most of these books too had some sort of discoloring. It looks like there's a fingerprint. Probably somebody eating a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos and decided to open this book and give it a read. Pages are definitely off-white. I think the bar was low as far as what I expected the condition to be on these. So it's probably like as expected, except for the one that had marker on it. Obviously that's a little worse. But yeah, it's probably in the VF range. VF minus, somewhere around there. Maybe I'm feeling like a 7.5 on this one. There's no tearing, but it would have to go through some sort of at least a dry clean, if not a wet clean as well. That's just a straight up fingerprint right in there. So does this have the potential to get above a 9 into the 9.4 range? No, I don't think so. It probably, if everything is able to be kind of worked out on this book, even with the spine tick, it probably maxes around an 8.5. So, like a 7.5, 8.5, where I'm giving it probably like a 7.5 with a clean and press indicator, but nothing that, is going to jump from a 7.5 to a 9.4 or something and be a total steal or bargain there. And this is just kind of what I wanted to learn from this seller, just to see, what kind of quality or condition books are we getting here. Here's Captain America 229. Looks to be kind of a similar situation as the last book. And these are really nice, like filler issues, I would say, for if you're trying to make a nice Bronze Age, early Copper Age run of Captain America. These, I think, would be perfectly adequate copies. But yeah, probably, again, in that fine plus to very fine plus kind of range. And that's what they were advertised, so that's not surprising there. Captain America 220. This one is severely miswrapped, and some of the dirt on the cover is actually coming around to the front. So this one's a little tough. Could be more leaning towards fine. I'm just seeing a lot in the cover, and without even taking it out of the bag and board, I can feel sort of the waviness. So there could have been some sort of warping on the book, either through moisture or something getting on the book. I'm not sure. But the goal here, again, let's take a look at the service and try and get some books on the cheap as an experiment. I could just kind of tell, like, I'm just not really feeling the condition as far as like any sort of potential to upgrade it. It's almost like this came out of a humidity chamber and then I never pressed it. Something like that. That's kind of the way that I'm looking at it. So hopefully there's no mold or anything on it. I'll take a look at that one a little bit later. And then the last book in the lot is a Silver Age book. It's Captain America 122. I really, really liked the condition of this one when I took a look at the scan, because I thought that, they were definitely being conservative / semi-accurate with the grading, but what I saw was there was not a lot of color breaking damage. It was just other things. So it was kind of giving me hope that maybe this could be cleaned up and get a grade bump. This one also appealed to me because of the black background there in the cover, but the spine was pretty strong. A little bit of stress there around the staple, but again, not color breaking, assuming they didn't take a Sharpie to it. It looks really, really solid. Just a slight bit of a spine tick there, just kind of a hairline color break right in there. If you kind of pull back, it's not as noticeable, but when you zoom in, that one, you definitely can see it. So I probably missed that on the scan. Going up and down the rest of the book, again, just slight stress around the staple. Corner's soft, but not bad. And you can kind of see a little bit of a hint of what I'm about to show you on the other side of the book. This it's like the foxing from the back started to climb over to the front cover. Just to finish off the front, the top looks okay. There's just a little bit there of folding or creasing, just maybe finger bends over time or something like that. And then in this corner, we do have that color break right there on the corner itself. So if I'm just looking at the front cover, probably a pretty strong 8.5. Could maybe make the case that it's a 9. Maybe it gets pressed out into a 9, or start at an 8 or 8.5, press it up to a 9, but looks pretty strong. And then you turn it over, and we definitely start to have some foxing issues there. You start to see those rusty bronze colored spotting all over the place, and that continues along the top cover and along the side. And this is kind of what I'm afraid of with a lot of these books, where I can deal with this or handle it. There's methods to not necessarily remove foxing, but improve the book so that it's not as bad. But then you start to see things like there's more impact corner crunching there. The reason that I gambled on this one, first of all, I feel like I got it at a good deal, but also just minimal spine damage, just a couple of spine ticks there. The one severe color break there, a little bit of a dent here. So, to me, when I saw it, it looked to be in the 8, 8.5 possibility or realm of possibility. And then the back with all the foxing, that's going to just drop it significantly. So I'm probably thinking, like, if it maxes 8.5, we've got kind of 8, 7.5, 7, and then it's borderline fine plus, somewhere in the 6 to 7 range. And I think I'd probably, just because the back is pretty nasty, I think I'd lean 6.5 on it. You could give it the heritage grade and give it like a near mint minus with foxing on the back, but I prefer to build in the actual assessment and grade into the book. More foxing just on the front here. It'd be kind of a fun book to experiment with, to see just how much can be removed. But unfortunately, when that gets baked into the paper, it is just kind of what it is. And it's one of those too, like, is this specific book worth the trouble? Is it worth the spot treatment? Is it worth the whitening? I mean, and if you're kind of doing this at home and you're doing it as a hobby for fun, then of course it is. I love the book, love the cover. It's very, very cool, but would most likely come back in the 5.5 to 6.5 if I were to do nothing with it and have it sent out for grading. And even if I could get it all cleaned up, so that the thought was, if we could work a miracle and completely brighten and clean up the back cover and some of the elements on the front, is it a 9.0? What is this corner doing to the book? It's not a 9.4 with that sort of corner and top of the book. And then with the impact corner crunch and everything. So there's just, I think, too many things wrong with the book where when I look at it and say, what's worth your time? What's worth the trouble? What are you going to pay somebody to do with this? This is where I have to run the numbers. And this is where I have more advanced or modernized versions of prepping for auctions, where when I'm looking for books like these now, which I did not use that prep for this set of auction items that I won, but it's got the potential cost to clean and press baked into my analysis, so that I would probably not even bid on these books in the fine to very fine range. Still, I think an awesome set of Captain America books, but let's look and see just what I paid for these. What were those final bids on some of these books, where, some of them you might say, yeah, I would take that condition at that price all day. Or some of them may say, yeah, you overbid. There's no way that you can improve a book beyond that type of condition. You can't remove red marker from a cover, those sorts of things. So let's take a look at the numbers and compare those numbers to fair market value and the listed condition if I were to get these books graded. Okay, so here's the breakdown of the order that I placed with Infinity Comics through HipComic. I spent $38 on the order. Looks to be about $14.25 of that was just shipping and tax. So that's where I was like, hey, look at me, I'm winning auctions on the cheap. And then when I applied the shipping and tax across the books, then some of these great $2 or $3 wins ended up being a little bit more. So if I compare these books to fair market value and look at the total cost here, column Z adds up to 38. So my math is correct. And just let's go over actually first what were the winning bids here. So I ended up just going from least expensive to most. Cap 220 in a fine condition, $1.75. Cap 236 in a VF, I got $1.85. Cap 229, fine, very fine at $1.90. Captain America 248, VF minus at $3.50. Cap 231, VF minus $3.75. And then the Captain America 122 was listed fine, very fine at $11. And I just felt like that's pretty good, I think, for the condition. You're talking about maybe like $2, $3, $5 boxes, a $10 box that you'd maybe see at a convention. And you're looking at it going, yeah, for that kind of price, that kind of condition, that kind of age, those are great pickups, I thought, at least. And then once you apply the tax and the shipping to the final cost, it does increase it a little bit. Those books that make you feel good because you won them under $2, they end up costing over $4 to have them sent. And then you're like, oh, well, can I do anything with Cap 220? Fair market value on that book, for example, is $7. And the way that I calculate fair market value right now is I typically am only buying near mint books, so I want to get the near mint value from cover price or the highest value across all conditions, because sometimes if a near mint book hasn't sold for 3 years and then a VF copy sold last week, it might sell more than what it's listed as near mint. That's where those things, it's kind of hard for me to really come up with now with a true raw fair market value, especially in this case where I've got books in the fine to very fine range. So take that with a grain of salt. Just using it as a baseline, just kind of a general idea. If the book was, pressed up, cleaned up, in decent shape, what does the fair market value look like? So in this case, I don't know if I can accurately represent the values, but that's just kind of the way it is. So total cost $4.13 for that book, for example, and I've got fair market value on that one at $7. So when I was bidding on these, I was kind of looking at this fair market value and thinking, well, if I'm going to get a book for $2, $3, $4 and the FMB is maybe 11, is it truly very fine? Is it, and I was looking at things again, defects that could be pressed out. As long as they had a pretty solid spine and sharp corners, then maybe it's something I could deal with and try and get a grade bump out of it with a little cleanup. However, just looking at a couple of those, I feel like each book is unique, but they're all going to have similar problems. So will they actually grade out as advertised, or will they get a bump? Probably closer to the advertised grade. So you could probably maybe even just kind of ballpark the FMV and cut it in half. So, probably looking at that, then it was more of a break-even situation after paying for shipping and tax. And these are the kind of books, too, that I don't always want to necessarily keep for the long term, like unless I'm putting together a full run of Captain America. All right, so let's do this. Let's just put in the grades as advertised and kind of see from the CGC side, what kind of values are we looking at here? Just to see if there is some grading potential. Again, at the listed grade, I'll have to grade these just to see if they precisely grade out. But we've got a fine, very fine copy of Cap 122, fine for 220, fine, very fine for 229. Some of these don't even have conditions or grade values I'm able to pull back. VF minus, VF, VF minus. Yeah, I can't even get values for these. So I think ultimately it was one of those situations where it was probably too good to be true. It was an experiment. I do believe that the specific books that I chose for the most part probably could be pressed and cleaned and fixed up and maybe get a grade bump somewhere. But these are just, I think, fun books to add to your collection. I don't believe that maybe these are, specifically grading material, especially as I look at these again. So it's definitely like a live and learn type of situation. And as much as I am all in on auctions right now, I think this was a good example of maybe even getting caught up in the hype a little bit, where I was seeing some books and I was like, there's no way that these late 70s Cap books, I just can't let them go for $2 or $3. But then when you run the numbers and everything, especially right now, these books are not worth it. They're not worth the trouble. 34, almost a 35-year-old book, it's got to be worth more than $5, and it's not. It's not worth $7. And certainly in this condition, we're talking about it being a $2 or $3 book. And while you would think that with the age of the book, the popularity of the Captain America character, obviously, and the series, this is why I really, really focus on high grade, because you get kind of stuck with these books, unfortunately. And if I'm going to take the time to do the research, to prep, to buy the books, to get them, potentially press them, catalog them, put them into spreadsheets, analyze them, and do all of this work, time is money. I want it to be worth my while. And that's when I just get uneasy when I end up with some of these books, because I know that I have to spend time with all of these Cap books and grade them and do all of the things that I just said. And I just don't want to do it for a $2 or $3 comic. These, to me, essentially would be reader copies. It would be a really tough sell to say that those are high grade. So my takeaway, what is this lesson that I learned? I don't necessarily know if I would participate in auctions with Infinity, unless they're going to have slabs or something else within their auctions. But it feels a little bit like a purchased collection that was just sort of thrown up there. I mean, at least the grades, I think, gave you kind of a relative idea. But if you're dealing with non-keys and high grade, and when I talk about high grade, I'm thinking 8.5 and above, like non-keys. Okay, it's something that I think we can work with. But when you start to dip into the 6s, the 7s, you kind of, is this borderline 5.5? That's where there just comes a breaking point where it's just not worth the trouble. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.